Hello everybody, this is Louis from LoukProp and welcome to another episode of Real Talk with LoukProp. Now, there was a recent transaction of a $1.4 million HDB at City Vue at Henderson, and there were 261 transactions of $1 million HDBs in 2021 alone. Not to mention that the recent HDB resale price index recorded an all-time high of 159.5. So will this upward trend continue for HDBs, or are we seeing its peak already? That's what we are discussing today. Let's go. Now, before we go on, we have to really understand why the government introduced this thing called HDB, right? Public housing. It is mainly to ensure that everybody has a chance to get an affordable home so that the majority of Singaporeans have a roof over their heads, right? But what we saw was this. From 2002 to 2013, there was a sharp increase in prices. Now, if you take a look at the resale price index, the index went from 69.1 to 149.4. Right, what this prompted the government to do was to introspectively look at whether HDB pricing was really still affordable or not. And what they realized was this. If they are not doing anything to curb the rate of increase of prices for HDB flats, HDB prices are not going to be affordable anymore. So what did they do? Right? They introduced this cooling measure called mortgage servicing ratio, or what we call MSR, which basically restricts the amount that you can borrow on a HDB flat, right? So whatever monthly installment your HDB flat is paying, it cannot exceed 30% of your salary. Now, this cooling measure was super effective, right? What we are seeing right now is that the next 7 years from 2013 to 2020 was a decrease in prices from 149.4 on the resale price index down to 131.5 in 2020. So this decline was honestly going in a pretty good direction to ensure affordability. But as we all know, this past 7 years' effort from the government was quickly negated because in the last 2 years, because of the pandemic, prices went all the way up from 131.5 to 159.5, right? This sharp increase in price not only met back the last peak in 2013, it surpassed it convincingly. So let's try to understand why this increase in price happened, because as we all know, during the last 2 years, the pandemic happened. And what happened subsequently was that a lot of things were shut down, including construction, right? Construction was super delayed. At one point of time, it wasn't even active. Right? So because of the delay in construction, BTOs were slated to be delayed for 6 to 12 months. People were even scared that BTOs would be built in 7 to 8 years instead of the usual 3 to 5 years. So for a couple that's looking to build their new home, their nest, waiting 7 to 8 years is honestly a little bit too long. Right? So what most HDB buyers at that point of time was they diverted their attention from buying BTOs to buying resale flats because it can solve an immediate need for them, right, without waiting too long. So this rise in demand for resale HDB flats naturally led to an increase in resale flat prices. But the question is, how long will this price increase continue and whether it will even continue? Let's explore that a little further. So let's take a look at the first point, which is the pandemic, right? We talked about it earlier on. The reason why the prices increased in the last 2 years was because of a delay in construction, resulting in an increase in demand for resale flats, HDB flats. But as we all know, the country is opening up, restrictions are lifted, and construction is officially back. In fact, the government recently announced as well that HDB BTOs will be built in 3 to 5 years instead of what people are worried about, right, the 7 to 8 years. So with that assurance from the government, I believe that the demand for HDB flats would slowly shift back into BTOs, because for young couples, they definitely prefer newer ones, right? Newer, subsidized BTOs, right? So this means that resale flat demand will start to shift downwards. So next, let's talk about cooling measures. Now, the last cooling measures for HDB was introduced in December 2021, whereby they reduced the loan-to-value ratio from 90% down to 85%. And to be honest, I do believe that more cooling measures will be coming up soon for HDB flats because, like I said, we have hit an all-time high in the resale price index, and the government knows this as well. So we remember the last time this happened in 2013, whereby they introduced the cooling measure, we experienced a 7-year decline in HDB resale price index. So we might see a similar scenario going on for HDB market from the coming few years as well, if government do decide to introduce more cooling measures. Now lastly, let's take a look at the supply of newly MOP HDB units for the past few years. Now the decline in prices from 2013 to 2020 was contributed by the fact that there was an increase in supply of newly MOP HDB flats hitting the market, right? So if you take a look at the figures here, in 2013 there were 1,770 units only, right, hitting MOP. Over the years, it has steadily climbed up, and in 2019, right, we were seeing 30,000 over new MOP HDB flats hitting the market. So this increase in supply actually led to a decline in prices. Now, in 2020 and 2021, we were set to see a record-breaking number of HDB flats hitting MOP, about 50,000 of them, and this, if without the event, right, pandemic, right, would have actually caused the market to actually go down further, right, a further decline in price. But we know it didn't happen. Now in 2022, we will be seeing another 31,000 newly MOP units hitting the market, right? This combined with the supply in 2020 and 2021 will form a large supply coming into the market and will eventually start to outpace demand in the market. If this happens, we will start to see prices start to either stagnate or even worse, start to decline in the next few years as well. So in conclusion, prices rebounded in 2020 due more to an event rather than an economic fundamental. And with normalcy returning to Singapore, with these new MOP units hitting the market, right, 31,000 plus of it hitting the market this year, and also possibly new cooling measures coming up very soon, we may see a decline in the HDB market sooner than later. So what are your thoughts on my analysis today? Leave it down in the comment section below. If you liked the video today, please go and like the video, share the video, and subscribe to our channel. It will help us a lot. Now, before we end the video today, I would like to ask you guys a question, right? How much do you think it costs to build those water tanks on top of HDB housing? It's free because it's on the house. Cheers.